This version of Wicked has certainly been changed for good. I'm a longtime fan of the Broadway musical, and as most people who are aware of the Broadway musical, it's not uncommon to hear people say that Act 2 of the play has always been a little bit weaker than Act 1. This is not to say we don't love it. This is not to say that's not an important part of the story, okay? A couple plots from the first act disappear a little bit, from kind of political to a love triangle, and there are songs that are less Broadway musical numbers with dancing and costumes, and more songs that are like soliloquies, like of the character dealing with some internal battle, and less like, "Dear Glinda, you're just too good." When it came to making a Wicked for Good, or Wicked Part 2, which do not actually get me started on the fact that this is a Wicked for Good, not Wicked Part 2. Oh, I will banish you to actual jail time, whoever came up with that, because not that I don't love the concept of the movie being called Wicked for Good. Just call the first one Wicked. Can we retroactively call it that? Can we change the title card? Because nothing pisses me off more than if you were to screenshot the two title cards. One will say Wicked Part 1 and one will say Wicked for Good. The same way that it was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and then Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And for that, whoever came up with that choice, I banish you to only watch Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, because I don't like that as much as Dead Reckoning Part 1. Anyway, I think that it had a little bit of a monumental task for it. It needed to please fans. It needed to live up to the hype of the first movie now. It needed to potentially expand upon some of these things that in the Broadway play are not able to be done, just in the scale of that production and the fact that, like, it's been so many years since that has released. Almost 25. And so I think there's been a lot of effort made that I want to emphasize before I get into some of my criticisms, because I do have them for this film. A lot of effort has been made to tighten this plot, to add context to things that were not there in the original musical, to balance out the feel of part 2. And I do appreciate that, because I do think there's certain context that is really added here that feels important. There's even certain scenes that I'm like, I can't believe that this wasn't in the original, because it feels that important. So much of this effort is because John M. Chu trusted his fans and trusted what people wanted and responded to in the first movie. There's an article which I'll link below for you that references how John M. Chu had an initial edit he did of Wicked for Good prior to the first movie's release, and then how that kind of shifted based on like feedback they had gotten from the first film and things that they wanted to go back and film reshoots for and whatnot. But he said he mainly realized that people wanted more of Elphaba and Glinda. And if you're not aware, in the Broadway musical in Act 2, they don't spend that much time together, which is definitely a choice that has been changed in Wicked for Good. You see a lot more moments of them together. In fact, there's places where one of them has been inserted. And I do think that's important because it does really emphasize the internal struggle of having someone you love be on the other side of something that you believe in, how that makes it that much trickier to try to navigate that kind of thing. So again, I think adding the dreams, responsibilities, and wishes of both of these characters, especially Glinda, is so well done here, and I really appreciate that. However, I do think because of all of these things that I'm discussing, the less poppy music, Wicked for Good reads a little more like a dystopian or a drama tonally, whereas the first part does feel a lot more comedy musical, right? Like, the first one is the definition of the comedy musical category at the Golden Globes. This second one of the characters is on the run from the government, so it's like, it's a lot more espionage than it is, oh my god, I hate you, we're pink and I'm green, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Wicked vibes of the first movie are not there. To be fair to the film, this would be much richer to watch in a double feature, which I did not do. I know, shame on me, send a flying monkey after me. I know and understand that part of the reason that I might not have liked Wicked for Good as much as I liked part 1 and felt a little bit let down by it is the fact that the story is meant to be consumed with no more than like a 15-minute break. Like, that's what the original Broadway musical is presented to you as. And so watching these movies, like, obviously watching them together is actually 5 hours. Like, it's 5 hours. So very few people, but actually a lot of people are going to do that. But I do think it would benefit seeing the story as a whole. And I do think it would be very consistent and cohesive because they did film them both at the same time. And it would be interesting for me to feel how that feels in that experience rather than just the pacing of like one movie. Because part one, I do think it really justified its runtime. Whereas here in part two, I'm struggling because on one hand, it's 20 minutes shorter than the first part, which I'm kind of like, why did you make it 20 minutes shorter? Like, just make it longer, right? But then on the other hand, there were certain parts that dragged so bad that I was just like, cut those. Like, this could have been 20 minutes shorter, actually. And so that's where I'm really struggling because, to be totally honest, I didn't love the new songs they added. I think adding 2 new musical numbers that are not a bunch of different characters walking around, singing, dancing, doing all this stuff, it's literally just 2 characters. And yes, the songs are important for understanding their mindsets. I get that and I can appreciate it. However, are these going to be skips when I listen to the soundtrack? Yep. And are they in the film a little bit of a dragger of our pacing, which is my major issue with this film, which is probably most critical people's issue with this film. And this is not to say that I did not enjoy this movie or that I don't think that people should enjoy this movie. I get that people are mad that the critics aren't liking this film, but critics are going in and not watching this from a fan perspective, which is totally how this film was made. So like, let's just set those 2 things aside. But to be fair, as a movie, the pacing is really rough. There are parts where it feels way too slow, and then there are parts that feel almost overwhelmingly fast. There's one iconic interaction that Elphaba and Glinda have after a certain plaid-wearing individual, after she shows up in Oz. Wink, wink, you know? That scene is very iconic. I remember it from the musical. And I would have loved if that moment was longer than it was, if there was more of a conversation there. This was also an interesting experience, and I would appreciate anyone who has not seen the musical or did not know about the ending of Wicked for Good or the second half of Wicked prior to seeing this. Please let me know, because I had a friend and she loved it. She had no idea certain things were going to happen. Whereas I think for me, as somebody who had seen the musical and understood what was going to happen, I was kind of just waiting for some of those plot beats to be hit. And I think that was probably, again, me doing a disservice to the film itself, because it's like, oh, well, okay, hold on. Let me reset my brain. We're doing this different song now. We're singing No Place Like Home. Okay, now we're back on pace. I think that was also additionally a little bit jarring, although I have heard people complain about that who haven't seen it. So again, would love your opinion. You're always welcome to leave it in the comments. However, even though I did not like those 2 new songs, the songs from Act 2 that needed to hit, they hit. I don't think anyone had concerns about any of the songs, let me be clear. But like, For Good is so good, obviously. Okay, that just goes without saying. Everyone has been talking about Cynthia Erivo's No Good Deed. You've no doubt heard at this point how amazing and incredible her rendition is. And it's great. It's a huge moment in the film. In fact, one that I feel like is so momentous. And then there's unfortunately some rushing after that I was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're just skipping past how amazing that was. Cool. Okay, that's fine. And then for me, thank goodness, really surprised me, because I've never like loved that song before, but there's something about the way Ariana sings it and the layers of her voice and a lot of fan theories about Glinda's pitch and like what she's trying to say with that I think are played with really interestingly here. But I think, again, in these moments, like they're true to Wicked, they're true to the musical, they're true to what you expect. And then even things that have been changed, like Wonderful, I think Wonderful is 10 times more impactful because Glinda has been added to that sequence, to that song and that scene, which obviously if you've seen the original makes a huge difference. If you haven't, I think it just like sells the point of that song even harder. I really appreciate all the people behind this film who really understand the original piece of work, how beloved it is and why it's beloved and why the movie has had such success, and have like really drilled those points home here. However, it's still just like this film is meant to be a lot more about truth-telling, propaganda, scapegoating, and that is just a lot darker than I'm at a school and might be getting magical powers that will help me reclaim some power in that. Like, this film is very much about, despite how much power you think you may have gained, that doesn't mean you can ultimately get what you want. And that is like a way harder, more adult, deeper thing than just, defying gravity and like finding that power. Everyone's gonna have points of this story where they're like, oh, I'm so glad they added this. I'm so sad they changed this. I really wish they would have gone and done this more. For me, I was always going to be rooting for more fiyero. And did I get that? No. And that's okay. That's not, like, the film wasn't meant to be made for me. It's meant to speak to the truth of this piece of work, which I do think has been done. I also think I personally struggled a little bit with, Glinda was such a highlight for me, if I'm just being so honest, in the first film. I've always been an elphaba girly. Ariana's portrayal of her was so defining for me. I just loved it. Her little, like, squeals and the way that she laughs and the way that she says certain things, like the right. And I know that a lot of these are obviously inspired by Kristen Chenoweth and all of the amazing performers that have played Glinda in the years since Kristen and up to Ariana, because Glinda's character is having such a massive overhaul in this second part intentionally. There's a lot of that's lost. There's a lot of Ariana's vocals that are different here. Again, I do think they're serving a very specific purpose that I think fans will be really excited about to dissect and talk about for years to come. But I do think it's like, okay, unfortunately, some of the best parts of part one were not able to be brought here for the sake of the story, and that is okay, and that is why I'm saying, like, watching them together is probably the way to find them both the most enjoyable. But I do just think if I was only ever, like, if I could keep one Wicked movie, it'd be part one. It'd be part one, and I feel bad saying that. Maybe it's a little bit of the brightness of colors, maybe it's literally the songs and the musical numbers, but I just didn't love it as much, and it was never going to be as joyous and uplifting as part one. If you are a fan of Wicked in some form or capacity, you're gonna enjoy this, because it's hard not to. This is still a great story. This is still a story that rings true. This is still characters that you can resonate with, songs that mean a lot to people and are beautifully done here. But I do think in terms of it as a movie, as a piece of cinema, it is lacking in a lot of areas. This movie is going to make $1,000,000,001. It's already well on its way to being probably one of the highest box office earners of the year, especially with a little bit of the superhero slump we had this summer. Like, this movie's gonna knock it out of the park, and I would not be surprised if John M. Chu in like 5 years is like, guess what? We're telling the Tin Man story now. Like, I would not be shocked, because there is so much love for the Oz and the world that he has created. But in the meantime, I'll probably go rewatch part one and try to get myself one of those Glinda margaritas, because those look amazing. And I want to be a part of the good vibes, even if this movie was, you know, intentionally a little sad and a little down. It's a little bit more of a downer than part one. That is all I have to say about Wicked. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to subscribe. I'm trying to grow a little community of fangirls on the internet. I hope you have a wonderful day or night whenever you're getting to watch this, and I will see you all in my very next video.